Tonight, flooding the border. The nation's single deadliest drug threat.
The whole point behind it is to drive addiction, right, and also to make a profit.
Fentanyl shipped from China to Mexico, then smuggled into the U.S.
Plus,
as you can imagine, I was terrified.
As Alzheimer's disease robs patients of their very sense of self, doctors are promoting lifestyle changes to reverse symptoms. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
Stopping the flow of illegal drugs at the U.S.-Mexico border. Welcome to Faith Nation in Washington. I'm John Jessup.
And good evening, I'm Jenna Browder. It's known as Title 42, a Trump-era public health policy that allows Border Patrol to turn away some migrants because of the COVID-19 pandemic.
And now that policy is set to expire in about 3 weeks. But before that happens, a coalition of conservative-leaning states is making a last-ditch effort to keep it in place, fearing without it, millions more could flood into the United States.
Yeah, and not just migrants, deadly drugs too, like fentanyl. Law enforcement reporting a 4,000% increase in fentanyl seizures along some parts of the border.
Today at the White House, incoming House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy proposed embedding the U.S. military with border agents to stem the flow.
It's killing our youngest generation from 18 to 45, the #1 factor, coming from China, making these cartels wealthy. You've got to lean on President Xi. You got to stop the cartels in my...
As CBN's Tara Mergener explains, fentanyl, because it's both highly profitable and easier to smuggle, is becoming a drug of choice for the cartels.
The Drug Enforcement Agency says most of the fentanyl coming into the U.S. is no longer being sent from China through the mail. Instead, China is sending it to Mexico, where it's manufactured in labs and smuggled over the border. Law enforcement officers point to the amount of fentanyl funneling across the border as the nation's single deadliest drug threat. Describe to me how it's getting in here.
Chinese criminals are exporting these chemicals into Mexico so the Mexican cartels can then distribute, manufacture this lethal poison into counterfeit pills. The whole point behind it is to drive addiction, right, and also to make a profit.
Sold as powder or pill, fentanyl is 100 times stronger than morphine, 50 times more potent than heroin, and cheaper to mass produce.
Fentanyl that's coming across our border in record numbers, surging 134% last year.
Even a tiny amount can be lethal.
We're losing 289 Americans a day. Every 5 minutes, a young kid is dying.
An estimated 100,000 plus in the U.S. died because of fentanyl during the pandemic alone. Numbers continue to soar.
It's been found in black market Adderall. It's been found in ecstasy pills. It's been found in cocaine, that people think that they're buying another drug and they're actually ingesting fentanyl.
DEA lab tests show that 60% of fentanyl-laced fake pills analyzed in 2022 contained a potentially fatal dose of the opioid.
Only take prescription pills that are prescribed to you personally and that come from a pharmacy.
Colorful fentanyl pills agents say are being used to target children are also popping up in one community after another.
Federal agents with an urgent warning to parents about rainbow fentanyl, pills the colors of candy.
Since August, officers have seized rainbow fentanyl across more than 24 states and counting. Critics of the Biden administration, including Texas Governor Greg Abbott, call the crisis a result of the president's refusal to secure the border.
They also sent this letter to President Biden as well as Vice President Harris, demanding that they classify Mexican drug cartels operating in Texas as terrorist organizations.
Would you say that there is any attempt by this administration to stop these drugs from pouring over the border?
Federal government needs to enact some policies. They need to put pressure on Mexico to go after these criminal organizations, to go after them, to identify these chemical weapon labs that are being manufactured in Mexico that are distributing this drug at mass quantities.
Texas alone has seen more than 400 million doses of fentanyl seized since March of 2021.
It's not a coincidence. We have a border that's out of control, uncontrolled immigration, thousands and thousands of people every single day. It's not a coincidence that we have a fentanyl problem on top of that. Because it's the same people who are responsible for that illicit traffic in persons. Those are the same people that are producing fentanyl and sending it into the United States.
And according to the Justice Department, illegal immigrants arrested for drug smuggling are not deported, but remain in this country to be processed in our criminal justice system. In Washington, I'm Tara Mergener, CBN News.
All right, thank you, Tara. Well, from the battle over the border to a looming railroad strike, the president earlier today met with the top Democratic and Republican leaders in the House and Senate.
He says a shutdown would devastate the economy. In an attempt to avert a breakdown in the U.S. supply chain, Congress is moving forward with legislation. The House voting tomorrow on the bill. This after negotiations failed between several railroad unions and the White House.
The ability of unions to strike, but weighing the equities, we must avoid a strike. Jobs will be lost, even union jobs will be lost.
The president told us all that this was solved long before the election. And now we find ourselves in the last moments, in the last hours, asking us to rush a bill to the floor. And if you're passing a bill to force the rail workers to work, how strong is your economy?
Well, despite the pushback, Leader McCarthy says he thinks the bill will pass. The threat of a strike comes as several railroads are seeing record profits. Unions argue those profits come at the expense of workers fighting for paid medical leave and more time with family. If all 12 unions don't agree to the terms of a new contract, a full strike could happen in early December.
Well, election chaos in Arizona tonight. Election officials there facing violent threats after failing to certify the midterm elections in Cochise County. The issue stems from a widespread problem with ballot printers on Election Day, now fueling claims of a stolen election. The Cochise County Board of Supervisors is being sued by the state secretary, trying to force the board to certify election results by Thursday. If the county refuses, projected victories will be on the ballot and thrown into question. It's also unclear how more than 40,000 votes will factor into the state's tally.
Well, in Georgia, voters broke the record for the most ballots cast in a single day during early voting. Georgians cast more than 250,000 ballots Monday to determine a pivotal runoff in the state's U.S. Senate race between Democratic incumbent Raphael Warnock and Republican hopeful Herschel Walker. The runoff is the result of neither candidate winning more than 50% of the vote in the midterm election. Voting will continue through December 6th and will determine whether Democrats expand their majority or if Republicans keep the Senate split at 50-50.
And joining us now, Nathan Gonzalez, editor and publisher of Inside Elections. Nathan, welcome. With this kind of early turnout in Georgia, do you think we'll have a clear and decisive winner next week?
Well, we all certainly hope so, right? I think we're all kind of done with these the extended counting. Fundamentally, Georgia is still a very competitive state. I think that we're still looking at a race that is decided by just a few points. We have it rated as a toss-up. I think there's more evidence that shows that Senator Warnock has a slight edge going into next week's voting. But Georgia, at least we knew, it didn't take us too long. It didn't take days before we knew that there was going to be a runoff after the November 8th election. So hopefully we'll have a winner and we'll have more clarity on what the Senate looks like next year.
Nathan, speaking of competitive races, to the drama in Arizona, Cochise County refusing to certify, then in Maricopa County, more objections and outrage after officials there certified their results today. Nathan, what's going on in the Grand Canyon state?
Well, I'm actually surprised that there isn't more of this around the country. But there are clearly some folks who believe that there were that the election was not fair or didn't answer all the questions that they had. The key thing interesting about Cochise County, since it hasn't certified, they were supposed to certify yesterday, 20 days after the election. Now I think they say they're going to vote on Friday. But this is a Republican county, and the legal team of the Secretary of State, the Democratic Secretary of State, who wants to count those votes, is saying that if they don't get their act together and certify it, they may have to canvass the state and not include those counties' votes. And removing that Republican county from the vote would not only, it wouldn't help the statewide candidates, but it could put in jeopardy a congressional race that was won by Republicans that without those votes would then potentially flip to Democrats. So there's still a long way to go over the next few days. But I'm actually glad there's not this chaos in more states.
Yeah. Today, outside the White House, Nathan, Kevin McCarthy was quick to condemn former President Trump's meeting with Nick Fuentes, the white supremacist and anti-Semite. Mitch McConnell took it even a step further, saying anyone meeting with someone like that will not likely be elected to the presidency. It seems like GOP criticism here is growing louder. What does that mean for Trump?
It is growing louder, but it's still very passive, right? I mean, if you can't criticize someone like Nick Fuentes, then, that is a very low bar in terms of criticizing, but we're still not seeing the direct criticism of President Trump. Until we see that, I remain skeptical that people are really going to take the former president head on. And until someone beats him in a primary, I still think he has to be regarded as a front runner. Right now, he's the only announced candidate. We'll see who ends up getting in, but it is still his party until someone shows to me that it's not his Republican Party anymore.
Nathan, last night we learned of the death of a Virginia Democratic congressman after nearly a decade-long fight with cancer. Got to ask you, how does his death affect the balance of power as the incoming Congress gains a slim House Republican majority in a few seconds that we have left?
Yeah, well, this is a Democratic district, so ultimately in the special election, I expect Democrats to hold it, but there will be this period where Democrats will be down a seat. And just a reminder, there wasn't any time in the last 2 years when all 435 districts had a member. So when you have a close majority, then every seat matters, and unfortunate, tragic events like this could impact the balance of power, impact key votes moving forward.
I was reading earlier he is something like the 5th, 6th, or 7th Congress member who died from this 117th Congress. Nathan Gonzalez of Inside Elections, we always appreciate your insights. Thanks, Nathan.
Thank you. Good to see you.
You too. All right, Alzheimer's disease devastating to patients and their families. Coming up, new hope that could help reverse some symptoms.
Well, welcome back. Get this. A new study suggests eating certain foods packed with flavanols may slow cognitive decline. Flavanols, antioxidants found in many vegetables, fruits, tea, and wine, may slow memory loss, according to the study recently published in Neurology. The cognitive score of people who ate the most flavanols declined more slowly by 0.4 units per decade than those who ate the fewest.
And speaking of diet and lifestyle, Alzheimer's disease robs patients of their memories, their relationships, and even their sense of self. It slowly steals their life away long before their heart stops beating.
But there's hope. An all-natural protocol is helping to reverse the symptoms of Alzheimer's. Medical reporter Lori Johnson has the details.
A number of Alzheimer's patients are describing how they regained their memory after starting the Bredesen protocol. It's not a drug. Instead, it's a number of lifestyle changes, including diet, exercise, and much more, each designed to address the approximately 40 different causes of Alzheimer's.
As you can imagine, I was terrified.
9 years ago, after Julie Gregory got lost on a very familiar road, she soon learned she had Alzheimer's.
I had lived in this town in the foothills of Georgia for 20 years, and I would run into people in shops who knew me very well, and Lori, I had no idea who they were. My personality began to change.
Julie also learned no cure or viable treatment exists for the disease.
I even contemplated ending my own life. And I think prayer brought me to the point where I realized what I was learning from mainstream medicine just wasn't true. I began to believe in this voice that was telling me there was something I could do.
She tried the Bredesen protocol, got back to normal, and has stayed there ever since.
What he does is identify and address every person's contributor to their symptoms. It's just plain old common sense, and my experience shows me that it works.
Sally Weinrich tells a similar story.
I forgot to pick up my grandchildren twice, one morning in the morning for school, within a month period of time.
5 years ago, Sally also considered suicide after experiencing the unmistakable signs of Alzheimer's.
I had 2 relatives die from it, really 3 relatives die from it, on both sides of my family. I knew I was at risk for it. I had a dread for it.
She believes God led her to Dr. Dale Bredesen.
I had all of the Dr. Bredesen's causes of Alzheimer's, and I think in my case, my Alzheimer's would have progressed very rapidly.
Instead, the opposite happened.
The best thing about my Alzheimer's today is I have answers for it, and I have reversed it. It is wonderful. I love life. I enjoy life.
Sally, Julie, and 5 others describe their amazing reversals in The First Survivors of Alzheimer's, how patients recovered life and hope in their own words.
They gave their specific protocols because they are personalized. Here's what each person did, how they did it, what their workarounds were, etc.
Over 2,000 people are currently on the plan. Clinical trial results released in 2020 showed 84% of plan participants with mild cognitive impairment experienced improved cognition. 12% continued to decline, and 4% showed no change.
In the people in our trial that we recently published, we actually saw increase instead of decrease in their gray matter in their brain. So you can actually see that there's improvement not only in their test scores, but also in their MRIs.
The first step of the protocol is the so-called cognoscopy to determine a person's individual risk of cognitive decline. This involves a computer quiz to assess your mental capability, as well as a number of blood tests to identify which areas a person needs to make changes.
And often there are 10 or more, and then we target those with a precision medicine sort of approach.
For most, that involves a low-carbohydrate diet, intermittent fasting, plenty of exercise, sleep, eliminating toxic exposures, as well as hormone and nutrient balancing.
Identifying those things and addressing them is how we see these people surviving so well.
It's a lot of effort and some expense, but people like Sally and Julie say it's better than the alternative. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Thank you, Lori. When we come back, the meaning of Giving Tuesday and how to dedicate the holiday season to helping others.
Well, today is Giving Tuesday. It's a day during the holiday season dedicated to helping others. And if you'd like to give through CBN, you can do that. Because of you, more people will receive food, clean water, education, and disaster relief. And you'll help broadcast the gospel around the globe. To give, just log on to cbn.com or call 1-800-700-7000.
Well, joining us now on this Giving Tuesday is Commissioner William Bamford. He is the Territorial Commander of the Salvation Army USA Eastern Territory. Welcome, Commissioner Bamford. Can we just start with the meaning behind Giving Tuesday and why it's significant the first Tuesday after Thanksgiving?
Sure. Giving Tuesday is a highlight that allows us to, again, express our love and service that the Salvation Army provides in supplying joy to people and helping them during this time of the year and throughout the entire year. So again, this is a key fundraising day for us and also this season of the year.
Yeah, more than 2 million people rely on the Salvation Army during the holiday season alone. The need for help, financial help, extends well beyond that, though. How important are today's donations in supporting families throughout the whole year?
Well, throughout the entire year, we will help more than 25 million people if it's based on last year's numbers. And with the economy the way it is and the struggles that many people are facing, we expect that number to increase. So today is important. An awareness of the Salvation Army's work in providing to people is key today on Giving Tuesday.
Well, it is that time of the year. This year's annual Red Kettle campaign, officially underway, is emphasizing the Salvation Army's mission to love beyond. Commissioner, what does that look like?
Well, we focus on this year's campaign as we think about, helping people that might be needing food on their table, might be needing, toys under the Christmas tree, providing shelter for people, helping people even in disaster. But it goes beyond all of that. It goes beyond Christmas. We want to bring joy and happiness to people. And we think of the millions of people that might be walking today without that joy and happiness. And we really want to bring that to them. And through our service and our ministry, we are allowed to do that. And we give praise to the Lord for that opportunity.
Absolutely. It's amazing work that you all do. Commissioner, there's obviously the red kettles that we all see at the stores. What are some other ways viewers can give to the Salvation Army this year?
Well, you can ask Alexa. You can say, Alexa, donate to the Salvation Army, or you can donate online to salvationarmyusa.org, or you can even text kettles to 51555. Or if you're driving down a street in your local community where you see a Salvation Army building, you could knock on the door or go in through the front door and offer a donation in that way. But obviously, as we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kettles out across the U.S. During these days, we'd certainly welcome donations in the Red Kettle.
All right, Commissioner William Bamford, thank you so much for joining us tonight and for your service.
Thank you, and we wish you well.
Thank you. Merry Christmas. God bless you. And don't forget to donate to the Salvation Army.
Merry Christmas. Well, the world's largest active volcano is erupting. What it means for life on Hawaii's Big Island after this.
Finally tonight, quiet for nearly 40 years, but rumbling under the surface since September.
That's right. The world's largest active volcano is now erupting in Hawaii. Mauna Loa on the state's Big Island is spewing gas and lava for the first time since 1984. Infrared cameras captured the moment it blew, spreading volcanic gas into the air and lava flowing over the sides. Officials are warning people there to be prepared, though at the moment the lava streams are not a threat to any communities on the island, and that is some good news to report. Amazing pictures there.
Yeah, amazing images. Yeah, we'll pray for the people there and their safety.
That's right.
This stays contained where it's at.
Well, we always appreciate you watching Faith Nation.
We do. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great night.